my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 17th of August of 2023. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. Just a few words about Kherson directions. The Russian Ministry of Defense reported that as a result of fierce fighting, artillery duels in this area, the Ukrainians lost 30 soldiers, 3 armored vehicles. We haven't received almost nothing from this area. The Russians managed to clear the bridgehead in the vicinity of Kazachia Lahiria. The Ukrainians were forced to step back on their bank of the river, and probably nothing more interesting took place in this area. Now we are moving further, and before we start with the Bradley Square and the fierce significant tank battle in Orekho area, I would like to tell a few words about Dnipro River. And Ukrainian sources published a very interesting video, and currently on the screen you can see the ex-Dnipro River and the water reservoir in this area. As you can see, the ex-river currently there are a lot of grass. The grass has raised, and the most important thing that the sources on the ground and the author of this video report that currently even some light tanks are able to cross this area. So as you can see, I don't think that neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians are able to start offensive operation crossing the ex-Dnipro River, but as you can see, at least in August, but at least you can see the length of the combat line has been increased because of the situation. You see the grass, you see that at some areas there is real high chances that armored vehicles and like Max Pro or even Russian light like Tiger or Kazakh Ukraine are able to cross this area and to make a very fast attack in direction to Energodar or from the Russian side in direction of Nikopol. I'm not saying that these operations are going to take place, let's say, this summer or even the beginning of autumn, but the only thing I understand that the next year we are going to see real clashes in this area. And based more than that, furthermore, I expect that soon both sides, either the Russians and the Ukrainians, will start the clash and the fightings for the gray zone, because the combat line has been increased. New trenches needed to be built in this area because of very light access, and I expect probably the next year or maybe this winter the clashes for the gray zone. Or furthermore, the Russians currently have real possibilities to use the situation and to establish the bridgehead on the Ukrainian side of the water reservoir. Who knows? This is for now speculation, but the picture tells us that something very big can happen in this area. Now we are moving further to the Orekho bridgehead, to the Bradley Square. As you can see, a lot of icons. The Ukrainians during the day made a lot of waves in direction of Robotyne, Verbova, Novofyodorovka, Novopokrovka. The Ukrainians used their strategical reserves. They were using the forces of 46th Air Mobile Brigade. The Ukrainians were using the forces of 116th, 118th Brigade, 47. The rest, the parts of the 47th Brigade, the Ukrainians were using the forces of 82nd Brigade. Significant number of forces were attacking the Russians all over the combat line. The Russians from their side were attacking the Ukrainians with all types of weapons they have. We have a lot of videos of bombings and shelling of Ukrainian positions while they were moving to the south in direction of Russian trenches. A lot of convoys were stopped as a result of fire of artillery strikes. For example, in this video we see another attempt of Ukrainian convoy to attack the Russian positions in Robotyne. The Russians managed to discover the Ukrainian forces and they started massive artillery strikes with anti-tank drone attacks. A lot of armored vehicles of Ukrainian forces were destroyed during that battle. Furthermore, the Ukrainian sources published a very interesting video. At least the author of this video claims that this is the episode how the Ukrainian soldier launched a missile which later, a few seconds later, destroyed the Russian Ka-52 in the vicinity of Robotyne. And this is the video of destroyed Ka-52 somewhere on the southwest of Robotyne. As you can see, the Russian helicopter, because of very fierce clashes, because of very big pressure from the Ukrainian side, the Russians were forced to send helicopter as close as possible to the combat line, and basically from the north of that area the Ukrainians launched a missile and basically shut down the Russian Ka-52. The Ukrainians made a lot of attempts to attack. The Russians were sent their distant mining machines, and they were working 24 hours. They were mining area like 24 hours, 7 days. a week. The Ukrainians had significant losses. There was a lot of videos of evacuation. We will not see these videos because of heaviest losses from the Ukrainian side. We saw challengers on the combat line. That was a massacre. Today we can say that the Battle of Orekhov turns into the massive massacre from both sides, either from the Russians and from the Ukrainians. Furthermore, the Ukrainians were continuing their pushing in the direction of Verbova and Novopokrovka, and they were bombing and shelling these positions heavily. On this video we see how the Ukrainians managed to discover the Russian ammo depot, and as a result of artillery strike, that ammo depot was destroyed. But probably all those videos, of course, are very interesting, very informative, but to tell the truth, there was 2 videos of the day that made the entire day. And I have tried to geolocate them. The author of that video told us that the video was made in the vicinity, in Zaporozhye front line, probably somewhere in the vicinity of Verbova. I tried to find the position that looks like the position that was described in the video, and this is the video I'm going to talk. The Ukrainians sent a very powerful fist of armored vehicles to the south, probably in the direction of Robozyno or maybe in the direction of Verbova. And there was like a tank fist with armored vehicles as personal carriers, with platoon with forces inside. The Russians discovered the Ukrainian forces and started bombing and shelling them on their way. And the Ukrainians was trying to land, to regroup, to get their positions, to pack probably the wounded soldiers and to capture bridgehead. As a result of artillery strikes, at least 2 armored vehicles were damaged, and at some moment of this battle, of this situation, the Russian tank has arrived. You see on the south the Russian tank. This is the tank. Where can you see my arrow on the screen? This is the tank, and at the first strike, the tank destroyed the first personal armored carrier of Ukrainians, who was trying to maneuver in the vicinity among the fields and the foreign lines and not to get under artillery fire. The Russian tank continued watching, continued following and track the situation, and continued trying to get and to find more armored vehicles that this tank can destroy. As we can see on the north, 2 more armored vehicles started or continued their movements to the south in direction right on the line of fire of Russian tank, and the Russian tank, like a shark, was staying on its position and was attacking. As you can see, the first Russian bullet missed and bypassed the Ukrainian armored vehicle. After that, the Russians started reloading, and the second strike, he destroyed another armored vehicle. As you can see, the third armored vehicle of Ukrainian forces discovered the Russian tank and started running away from these positions. After that, the Russian tank left this area and regrouped, probably went to the mainland. Few hours later, at the same area, the Ukrainians continued their offensive operation. As you can see, the timings has changed. Now it's evening. A lot of destroyed Ukrainian armored vehicles. The Russian tank is still there. You see he is on the bottom right corner. The tank was moving to the combat line, and we see another tank of Ukrainian forces is getting to this small interception of the forest lines, and probably now is going to be another strike, another attack of the Russian tank. So that was a real tank battle, probably the second tank battle in the Zaporozhye area, not just in the Zaporozhye area, but that we saw the video of that tank battle. And as a result of this fight, the Ukrainians lost another tank. Now the tanks started attacking each other, trying to destroy each other, and it was a very fierce battle, as you can see. And at some point, the Russians managed to destroy another Ukrainian tank in this area. So there was a fierce tank battle, the tank battle of 21st century, where one Russian tank managed first to repel the Ukrainian attack, and after that, this is the video of destroyed Ukrainian tank. So as you can see, a fire by the Russian tank and so on. Significant battle. The Russians won that battle. As a result of that battle, the Ukrainians lost at least 5 or from 5 till 7 armored vehicles, including tanks, and the Russians were able to return back and to save control over these fields. So that was the battle of Zaporozhye, of Bradley Square of today. Significant losses from the Ukrainian side, not just in armored vehicles, but also in the personnel. The Russians reported that as a result of those clashes, the Ukrainians lost up to 200 soldiers, 9 armored vehicles, including 4 strikers and 5 artillery systems. The Russians repel every single attack in this area. Now we're moving further to the Vremivka tactical bridgehead. We discussed the battle of this area. We discussed during the previous few videos the possible Ukrainian movements, the next movements in this area, and starting this war that we discussed in the previous video, the Ukrainians started attacking and bombing with drones, with artillery systems, the Russian positions among the fields between Urozhaine, Novodonetsk, Kremenchuk, and Staromlynovka. At least 3 drone strikes that were geolocated. You see these drone strikes. And later, first Ukrainians made the drone strikes, and basically with those drone strikes, the Ukrainians destroyed and damaged Russian positions and armored vehicles that were hidden among the forest lines. And after those attacks, the Ukrainians sent another wave of another artillery first to the south. So hordes of Ukrainian armored vehicles, air personal carriers and tanks started their movements among the forest lines in direction of Kremenchuk and Staromlynovsk. All those that attack was repelled. The Russians discovered the Ukrainian convoys, discovered the Ukrainian armored vehicles, they tracked them, and as soon as they get and stop somewhere between the forest lines, the Russians launched significant artillery strikes. As a result of those strikes, the Ukrainians lost another more dozens, maybe not dozens, but few armored vehicles, few tanks. That attacks was repelled, and the Ukrainians were forced to step back. Basically, during the day, we saw the Ukrainian attacks in direction of Staromlynovka among the fields and in direction of Kremenchuk. All those attacks were repelled by the Russian artillery systems. There were no tank battle, but anyway. Yet we haven't received any clashes in any battles in the vicinity of Novodonetsk and Novomayorsk, but I expect that sooner or later the Ukrainians will launch attacks in these directions as well. The Russians, to slow down and to pin down the Ukrainians during the day, were bombing not just the fields but also Staromayorsk and Urozhaine, basically the southern parts of those settlements. The Russians wanted not to allow the Ukrainians to accumulate their forces in the southern parts of those settlements, and they wanted not to allow the Ukrainians to support their offensive operation in the fields with attacks from Staromayorsk to the south in direction of Zavitno-Bazhanye. Currently, Zavitno-Bazhanye is the main purpose of the Ukrainians, and of course the main purpose of the Ukrainians is to establish fire and physical control over the road that connects Staromlynovka and Kremenchuk, and basically to split the Russian army in 2 parts. During the day, the Ukrainians made massive missile and drone attacks not just among the fields, but also the Ukrainians attacked the Russian positions in the vicinity of Plukhova. On this area, the Ukrainians managed to discover the Russian artillery system and the operational ammo depot of that artillery system, and as a result of artillery strike, both artillery system and the ammo depot were destroyed. Furthermore, the Ukrainians made a massive drone attack in the direction of Yegorovka, and also the Ukrainians bombed the Russian positions somewhere in the vicinity of Yevgeniivka. Anyway, even if the Ukrainians are not planning to attack the Russians in Novomayorsk and Shevchenkovo, currently the Ukrainians have already established some artillery control over the settlements that are located behind this combat line. So now they try to suppress, and probably within the next 48 hours, the Ukrainians will make an attempt to attack the Russians in Novomayorsk and of course in direction of Shevchenkovo. Meanwhile, while the Ukrainians are trying to develop their bloody offensive operation in the direction of Staromlynovka, the Russians very slowly but step by step trying to penetrate and to establish and to storm the settlement by the name of Novomikhailovka. Today the Russians published more videos, more attempts of their offensive operation to the north. On this video we see how the Russians attacked the positions along the forest lines, and probably as a result of the attack the Russians destroyed ammo depot and another Ukrainian artillery or infantry position. Furthermore, today we got the video how the Russians helicopters made the attack with the Izdelia 305 missile. This is the missile that we discussed many times. These missiles for helicopters, and helicopters can attack the Ukrainian position within a distance of 15 kilometers, which basically makes these helicopters invisible for the Ukrainian air defense system. This is not the first case, and if we increase the number of days from this area since July, we're going to see that around 4 attacks of that type took place in the settlement. Furthermore, if you take a look at the number of updates, we understand that the Russians currently try to reduce this settlement to ruins, and after that they will make a flank attack against the Ukrainian positions, against the Ukrainian forces that currently try to attack on the Vremivka tactical bridgehead. More updates we got from Krasnogorovka as well. The Russians continue their attacking in this area. Currently, the Russians try to suppress the Ukrainian drone commandos' drone control positions. On this video, we see how the Russians tracked the Ukrainian light vehicle, and when the light vehicle got their position, the Russians made another drone strike and destroyed the Ukrainian support car, this vehicle. Furthermore, the Russians discovered another Ukrainian drone position somewhere in the southwest of Krasnogorovka, and after the intelligence provided the information to the Russian artillery forces, the Russians made a massive artillery strike against this position, and as a result of that strike, according to the author of this video, another Ukrainian drone position was destroyed. As a result of fierce fightings in the South Donetsk area, the Ukrainians, according to the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, lost around 175 soldiers, 7 armored vehicles, including 2 tanks and 2 artillery systems. Furthermore, the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation reported that during the previous 24 hours, they made a massive attack against the Ukrainian railways and the railway stations. And in this video, we see the results of one of those attacks. The Ukrainians lost another train with supply and munition that probably the Ukrainians sent to Donetsk area, or probably the South Donetsk area. Anyway, that, believe me, was a very nice result for the Russians, because according to the video, we see that the Russian drones were flying a bit above this railway station, and the distance to this railway station is around 70 kilometers. So imagine yourself, the closest Russian positions, for example in Donetsk, were around 70 kilometers from the area where the Russians made that artillery strike. So we see the Russians have technologies to fly above the territory of Ukraine, deep inside the territory of Ukraine, without being attacked or suppressed by the Ukrainian electronic warfare equipment. Now we're moving to Klishchiivka area. We haven't received many updates from this bridgehead. The Ukrainians continue bombing and shelling the Russians in the south of Bakhmut, Artyomovsk. The Ukrainians made an attempt to attack in direction of Zaliznyánska. That attack was repelled by the Russian forces. After that, the Russians discovered the Ukrainian positions behind the main Ukrainian attack forces and start bombing and shelling the Ukrainians in the settlements like Golubovka and Privilye. The Russians reported that as a result of fierce clashes in Donetsk front line, the Ukrainians lost 310 soldiers, 13 armored vehicles, including 1 tank. Now we are moving to the Kremenная forest, and we got a lot of very interesting updates from this bridgehead, and probably the most important of that is that Brigade Azov returned to the combat line, and according to sources we have, the Ukrainian military authorities took a decision to redeploy Azov forces in Kremenная forest. I'll remind you that Azov brigade is the brigade that was fighting in Mariupol, and basically this is Mariupol, and this is like Azovstal battle of Mariupol, and that brigade was captured by the Russians. Then there was a prisoner exchange process and so on. So currently this brigade returned to the combat line, and the Ukrainians took a decision to redeploy them to Kremenная. So basically that means that Kremenная plays a very big role in the Ukrainians' plans if they took a decision to redeploy this brigade in this area. Basically the main purpose, of course, to increase the spirit of Ukrainian forces in this area. So that means that they have some plans regarding this area. The Russians continue offensive operation along the Kremenная forest, and today we got another tank battle somewhere from the Kremenная forest, where the Russian tank with its armored vehicle was moving between the lines, between the roads in that forest, trying to storm and attack the Ukrainian positions. On this video we see how the Russian tank was attacking the Ukrainians in this area, trying to destroy and suppress Ukrainian checkpoint stronghold. As a result of that attack, probably the Russians managed to capture another stronghold somewhere between the forests, trees in the Kremenная forest. This video is geolocated. That attack took place in this area. The Russians reported that as a result of fierce clashes on the Tarskoe salient, the Ukrainians lost another 55 soldiers. A lot of updates are coming from the Kupiansk front line. The Russians continue advancing in the vicinity of Sinkovka, trying to bypass the settlement from the west and trying to bypass the settlement from the east. Currently, as I understand, there is already operational encirclement in this area. As we discussed, the Ukrainians took a decision to withdraw their positions and to step back closer to the Kupiansk. The Russians published a lot of videos of artillery duels, and for example, in this video we see how the Russians managed to discover the Ukrainian positions, and with guided bombs, the Russians bombed the Ukrainian positions inside the settlement. Furthermore, the Russians managed to discover another artillery position of the Ukrainian forces somewhere in the vicinity of Sinkovka. And the sources are saying that this is probably Palladium M109 artillery system as a result of Lancet strike. That artillery system was destroyed. For now, the Russians haven't entered a single settlement as a result of attack. We are not talking about Novostilovskaya. They're just trying to capture and to develop their bridgehead among the checkpoints and strongholds in the fields. The Russians reported that as a result of fierce fightings in this area, the Ukrainians lost another 125 soldiers. So during the day, during the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians lost up to 2 battalions, up to 1,000 soldiers as a result of clashes all over the combat lines. Tomorrow, I believe the number is going to be higher. Furthermore, there are more and more evidence and cases of some activity from the Russian side in the vicinity of Sumy region. More and more sources are saying that almost every single day the Russians are sending more and more reconnaissance team and commandos team on the territory of Sumy. The main purpose of these teams is to find and locate the Ukrainian positions, Ukrainian logistic, the positions of facilities, energy facilities, communication facilities. Probably the Russians have launched the preparation operation before the real offensive operation in Sumy region. I'll remind you that even this month we have already discussed one special operation in Sumy when the Russians sent reconnaissance team that discovered the Ukrainian positions, and as a result of a very short but very loud clashes, the Russians destroyed the entire base of Ukrainian forces along the border. And this is not the first special operation in Sumy area. And furthermore, don't forget that some Russian authorities have already reported about the preparation of personal Russian offensive operation, not counter, but offensive operation. And there is a very high chances that the Russians will launch their offensive operation not in Kharkiv or Kupiansk or anywhere else, but they will try to attack in direction of Sumy and to cut the road between Kiev and Kharkiv, which will be the beginning of Kharkiv storming operation or something like this. Furthermore, when talking about President Zelensky, today he adopted or signed another law which prolonged the mobilization and the military material law in Ukraine for another 90 days. So the Ukrainians are planning to mobilize more forces, another 100,000 soldiers, which basically probably will be trained in the Western countries, and then they will return back to the combat line, and we're going to see more clashes and more fightings in autumn and December and winter of this year. Nobody is going to stop this war. Nobody is planning to stop. There are going to be more and more fierce and bloody clashes all over the entire Ukraine. I can't tell you who is going to win this war, either the Russians or the Ukrainians. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.